Thanks to everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. And I think Jen, you'll take them at the end, typically.
You got it.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. I'm going to give you a brief introduction. So Jen's career has always been focused on helping people find theirs. She does this by guiding her clients through a proven process that gets them clear on their career goals. This process includes crafting a strong career story, building a resume and LinkedIn profile that turns heads, in-depth interview preparation, and so much more. She has a knack for helping others uncover their unique talents while accelerating their job search process. With an HR management degree from Ryerson University, a certified HR leader designation from the HRPA, and over 15 years of human resource experience specializing in talent acquisition from Home Depot and CIBC to mid-sized organizations and boutique companies, she's honed her skills by working with a wide network of clients and filling a variety of positions. I always find it hard because I want to look at the camera, but I'm looking down here and I feel like I'm ignoring everyone. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jen. Are you okay with your PowerPoint slides?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, can you see my PowerPoint slide or not yet?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, you're in presentation mode.
Okay, awesome, great.
Awesome.
So,
and I'll come back at the end and we can take questions and talk a little bit more about your business as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much.
So welcome everyone. So today I'll be talking about how to create and optimize a resume that gets you noticed. You'll be hearing all my insider secrets from a career coach and a recruiter perspective. And Rachel already described my background, so I will skip a few slides. That way we can jump right in. So let's talk about the reason why you guys are here. The question of the next 25 minutes or so is, how do I write an optimized resume that will get me through to the next round? So here's basically the recipe for success. So storytelling plus keywords, which equals an optimized resume. So the first things first, you really want to make sure that you are doing effective storytelling on your resume. What this looks like or how this starts is you really have to get clear on your target role. Once you get clear on your target role, we then can reframe your resume to align to exactly what that target role is. If you are a jack of all trades, master of none, we really want to hone in onto what it is you really are the best at, and that's what you're targeting. So you don't want your resume to be applicable to a bunch of different roles, okay? Once we figure that out, then you can start removing sections or experiences that are no longer relevant or outdated. You really want to bulk up the experience that's really aligned to your target role, and you want to keep your resume short and sweet, 1 to 2 pages. As far as keywords are concerned, you really want to make sure the job titles on your resume align with industry standards. So what I mean, for example, is when I used to be a staffing coordinator, I renamed it to talent acquisition coordinator. So that way people understood that this was the same role. You can change your titles, but you want to make sure it's not misleading in the sense that you're using a different title that implies a different level. So as long as you're using an industry standard, it's totally acceptable. You also want to add a career tagline on the top of your resume that aligns with your target role. So I'll show you what this looks like in just a bit. But the really key thing here, guys, is to add as many keywords throughout your resume so you rank higher in the ATS and you pass the hiring team's sniff test, okay? So in order for you guys to do that, you need to understand the applicant tracking system. That's the system that you guys are applying to when you apply for a job online and you upload your resume. So we need to understand what these systems likes and dislikes. That way, you're not put into the dislike pile. So as much as it's nice to have a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing resume, you really want to make sure that there's not logos, charts, pictures, graphs, headers, footers, fancy bullet points, because the robots do not like that. What they do like is an optimized, simple resume. It may not look as fun and exciting. So if you are someone who's in a creative industry and you really want to have this fancy resume, not a problem. I would create that in addition to a simple resume. So you can upload the simple resume and you can give that fancy resume one-on-one to people when you're applying directly to somebody, if it's a referral, for example. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're creating your resume. When you are creating your resume, there's 2 different styles that I promote to my clients, the functional versus chronological. The functional, what it looks like is basically you're chunking in the transferable experience under relevant experience section. So for example, if you're making a career change and your last job does not really reflect your target job, then you want to pull out those key skills and have that as your relevant experience so we can show the alignment to the target role. And then under professional experience, you would then have what it is you've been doing in your career, but maybe there's less meat there and maybe there's more meat in the relevant transferable skills section up in the this area here. Okay, so most clients do use, or most candidates rather, use a chronological resume. So for the remainder of these pictures, you'll see the chronological resume being used. This is probably what most of you have. You have your professional summary on top, you have your professional experience, then you have your education, maybe volunteering, maybe interests. Okay, so I will be going through each part bit by bit, just to show you how to, again, optimize it. Your name, very obvious, but what you really want to make sure is the name you're going to use is the name that you have on your email when you respond to people, is the name you have on your LinkedIn profile. Super aligned everywhere you go, consistent story. If you have relevant designation, include that after your name. Of course, you're going to have your phone number, your email address. Do add your LinkedIn URL, especially if you've worked on amping up your LinkedIn profile so it's super impressive, then you really want to include your LinkedIn URL in this name and contact details, okay? So this was what I was talking about earlier. I was talking to you guys about a career tagline. So again, if you're in an industry or if your career experience has different job titles each time, maybe different industries call it something else, you really want to have one solid career tagline. So for example, for me, I call myself a career coach, even though my experience has been a little bit of HR, a little bit of recruitment, a little bit of this and that, but it all sums up to being an effective career coach. So my tagline is career coach. And so you want your tagline to be really reflective of what it is you're targeting. So for example, it doesn't have to be a specific title. It could be communication, social media, event planning. It could be the 3 different pillars that you focus on. It could be, learning and development professional, because maybe sometimes you're a learning development coordinator, sometimes you're a learning development analyst, sometimes you're a learning development manager. You've had different titles, but overall, you are a learning and development professional. So finding that career tagline that really sums up everything, okay? This will give the recruiter, the hiring manager, maybe even the bot allow you to have more keywords that helps them realize, okay, this person's in alignment to what I'm looking to fill. The next part is the professional summary. So when you're doing a professional summary, we should use bullet points and use keywords. And the reason why I bring this up is because I've seen a lot of professional summaries that are just a lengthy paragraph that nobody wants to read. So turn it into bullet points, and make sure the bullet points are not so loaded up with soft skills that can only really be proven in an interview. You want to load it up with key skills, relevant education. If your education is all the way on page number 2, but it's so relevant to what you're targeting, maybe you want to summarize it again up top. Maybe you want to summarize some technical skills that you have that your target jobs require, and you want people to see that right away. You don't need to have a separate technical skills section. You can, kind of include it in the professional summary. Okay, so this is going to really, again, tell someone, okay, this person's super aligned because I see a quick synopsis of who they are, and it's exactly what I'm looking for. Key thing here is not having a lengthy paragraph. The next section is the professional functional experience. So this is where you actually include the experience in your resume. This is where all the magic happens. This is where you can use all the keywords to really optimize your profile. So how I get my clients to do this is I have them pull up 3 target job descriptions, have them highlight all the keywords and skills and utilize them as much as possible. The more keywords and the target job titles you have in your profile, the higher you will rank to the bots and be an obvious fit to the hiring team. And I know I keep saying that over and over again because it's just that important. You can use something called jobscan.co, and that will allow you to see how much you are relevant to that target job. You can basically upload a job description, upload your resume, and it'll show a fit, what that percentage is. You want to begin each sentence with action verbs. You want to show just the past 10 to 15 years. If you don't have that many years of experience, that's totally fine. You really should be considering a 1-page resume. I have about 15 years experience, and I have a 1-page resume. Most of my clients who haven't made too many moves have about a 1-page resume. Remove everything that's irrelevant. If you feel like the more the merrier, I mean, that is the wrong approach to take, because the more you have, it dilutes the stuff that's really important. So that's why, again, when we're storytelling, removing the parts of the story that don't really add up, that don't really make sense to how you can be a good fit, it'll just cause confusion. Again, it will just dilute your relevant experience, okay? If you had short-term roles because there was a contract, because of restructuring, indicate that next to the date so they understand why you have a couple short stints on your profile. Now, when you're doing a professional experience, you really want to make sure it's action oriented. So don't just say what you've done. Don't just say, you've processed invoices, for example. I mean, if you've processed invoices, how much have you saved, or how many can you do, or, have you improved the process around it? So you really want to state a result every time you list out what it is, the action that you've done. So, I use the PAR formula. So problem or project, then the action, then the result. But it doesn't have to be in that order. It could be in any order. Just depends on what sounds kind of the nicest and most easiest to understand. But one thing I see very often is people just writing what they've done and there's no impact, no result. It's the same goes when you're doing interviews. You always mention the result or the impact. Okay, so you really want to make sure that's included in your resume. The next part is education certificates. Again, what you want to do is you want to make sure you remove anything that doesn't apply. So, maybe you're going to remove a yoga certification you did on the side, or a real estate certificate that you do for friends and family or yourself, but that's not your target role. So if you have extra stuff that shouldn't be there, I would say take them out, unless that's all you've done. So for example, you've done a degree in political science, but I'm not saying take out degrees or things like that. It's more those extra side things that you might have taken. Or if you've done, I've seen people who've done one degree and then half of a degree. Most cases, I would probably remove the half one if you've already have one that you've completed, as opposed to having things that aren't completed on there. So you want to keep the story really tight and concise. It doesn't mean you're lying or anything like that. It just means you're providing a summary that will help them understand how you're relevant, again, so we don't dilute the fact that you have other stuff that's a little less relevant, okay? Section 7 is parts of a resume, volunteering. If you have volunteering, that's great. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. It is optional. I have some clients who are, they're new to Canada, and the role that they're doing right now is actually a volunteering role. And so with that role, we've actually moved it up to experience. And you don't have to mention it's volunteer. You can let them know in an interview. Let's just get you more interviews by having this concise story on resume, right? But once you get more interviews, that's when you can explain the details. But I have put volunteering experience under professional experience because it's relevant and it's still professional experience, whether you're being paid or not, okay? So if it's not relevant, but you think it's something that makes you stand out as a candidate, then you can add it down below in an optional volunteering section. The last part is interests. With interest, it's just a nice icebreaker. You don't have to have it, especially if you have some dead space on the bottom. You want to include interest. That's totally fine. This used to, back in the day, people would put references available on request. I mean, there's no need to say that. That's obvious. Only give references if required or when required. Don't give it to them until it's asked for, and no need to mention that you'll provide it later because they know you will. It's part of the job process. Okay, so that could be a good filler instead, having an interest. So I'm going through this very quickly because I know lots of people have questions at the end. So this is what I'm saving time for. Key things you want to remember when you're doing your resume is you really want to make sure you have 1 to 2 full pages. I would not go more than 2. I know there's some exceptions to that, but I'm just saying on the average here. Again, most of my clients, we work really hard to have a 1-page resume full of keywords. The more concise it is, the better your story will be, because the more tighter it will be, the more aligned it will be. Because I know if you're only forcing yourself to do 1 or 2 pages, you have to remove the stuff that don't belong. So that's kind of your accountability right there. Proofread your resume, goes without saying, get someone else to look at it. Make sure you have your file saved as in Microsoft Word, and when uploading it into the ATS or PDF, if you're sending it to someone, so that way the resume is locked and loaded and no one can edit it. And then, once you apply for jobs, I always get my clients to follow up the hiring manager or the recruiter on LinkedIn as a follow-up. Okay, so that's kind of my takeaway. So if there is one thing to take away, that landing your dream job doesn't actually have to be overwhelming, frustrating, or scary. What you guys really need to do is break things down into digestible chunks, so that way it's so much more easier to tackle. It does seem a little bit overwhelming, so that's why when I work with my resumes, I go section by section by section. What I've done, if you guys are interested in it, I do have a 10-step process to land your dream job. So there is 10 steps in a course that I've created. It's super accessible. It's on sale right now for $97. Again, the 10 modules to landing your dream job, which are everything from career clarity to salary negotiations, interview prep, resume, LinkedIn, cover letter, everything is in here, all jam-packed for you. And then if you guys want to learn more about the free tips that I offer, I'm always all over LinkedIn. So please, please, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you guys. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see if there's any questions that popped up. Hold on. Okay. Okay, let me go on top. Hi, everyone. Okay, so, okay, thanks. 1 to 2 pages might be okay for an entry-level position, but not a more senior one, and certainly not public sector. Okay, so Victoria said 1 to 2 pages is not okay for senior professionals. So really your call. Most of my clients are senior professionals, and we do 2 pages, and it's never been a problem. In the 4 years, I never have created a 3-page. So if you want to create one, that's totally up to you. And even if it's in public sector, I've always found ways to make it 2 pages, and we've been very successful. But there's no right or wrong answer. It really is your preference, what you're comfortable with. Portia, yes, I like this advice. Careers can use to include a link to their, yes, exactly. You could totally have an online portfolio on your resume. Very good points. So you can do that as well. And then plus on your LinkedIn profile, there's so many options to upload documents, featured, different products you've created or things like that. So you can do that on LinkedIn as well. And of course, your online portfolio. Hi, Jennifer. Let's to today's industry standard job titles with the equivalent older titles available. I think you might have to do some research. I don't know where they're found. Usually what I do is I check out, my clients will check out who is doing similar roles to them on LinkedIn, check out some of the titles they're using, go on Indeed and do some job searching and see what jobs you find in the areas that you're targeting and what are they being called. So I think it's just doing a little bit of research online with, again, searching for job postings and then maybe seeing what people's job titles are on LinkedIn, for example. Mary White, thank you for sharing your expertise. Do we need to explain gap in employment in cover letter? Yes, I think that's a great idea to explain a gap in employment in your cover letter. So I get my clients to do that in their cover letter, and I also get them to do that in their LinkedIn bio as well. So I think that's perfect to do that. And then sometimes if there's like an employment in a gap in employment rather, even on the resume, we might indicate it. So we might say, caregiver responsibilities from, 2020 to 2021, something like that. And you don't have to list out an explanation of what that entails. Maybe just calling it something, almost treating it like a formal job with like a job title. So the caregiver, for example, and then the years, and then maybe barely much of an explanation, just in case you want to address that gap. Do courses offered by Coursera hold much weight? I've done some for personal learning, but I'm not sure if they're worth showing. If you have space on your resume, maybe adding 1 or 2 to show development, but I would feel free to load them up on LinkedIn for sure, because it doesn't make you go on to 3rd page and 4th page and things like that. But I would say that for sure you can use that on, you can add some of that on your resume, but I wouldn't add too much. And again, as long as they're very relevant to what you're targeting. So Laura Burzy, for various reasons, I've created a functional resume. Most online job application software will not accept it. Is there a way to get around it, or do I need to commit to a chronological one? Like I was saying before, is that, if a functional one tells your story better, you may still want to do the functional one, and then the chronological will just maybe not be effective at telling your story if you've made a career switch or if you have big gaps in your employment or something like that. So it might just have to be a little bit more time consuming when you apply, or again, consider switching over, assuming it's not much of a career change that you're making. Is there any way you can share your PowerPoint with us? I don't actually share my PowerPoint because it's actually things that I use for most of my paid gigs. So is it appropriate to indicate on your resume why your position's ended? Yeah, so that is something I mentioned also. So if you have a restructuring or contract, for example, that's a big one, right? If there's a contract, if it's an internship, next to the date, put in brackets, contract, restructuring, internship, something like that to indicate, again, why you have short stints. Yes, that's Nazif. I was just thinking I should drop my LinkedIn here, so I will do that. I'm going to do that right now because I'm going to forget. Okay. Is it appropriate to indicate on your resume why your positions ended? Okay, we talked about that. Do recruiters have access to your resume on LinkedIn? You would have to upload your resume as a document, and you'd have to so they shouldn't actually have access to your resume. I haven't uploaded my resume, but if you complete your LinkedIn completely, it's like having an online resume. And depending on your privacy settings, they may have access to the information that you have on there, or they may not, depending on your privacy settings and depending on how much you've actually filled out, for example. What would be the best way to describe conferences or events attended in a resume? Well, I'm thinking like I wouldn't necessarily describe conferences or events that I've attended unless I was a guest speaker at it. So if I was a guest speaker, then I'd probably mention it, but maybe not just as an attendee. If you meant something different, then you can send me a clarification question. In describing roles, what should be the proper outlay? Do I need to describe the role before going specifics in bullet form? I just use everything bullet points. I don't really like having paragraphs or too much sentences unless there's a bullet point, but underneath the job title and the company, sometimes I'll have a one-liner that indicates what the company is about. What's the purpose of this company? Why does this company exist? Because sometimes the company you work for is not recognizable to other people, especially for making an industry change. So then you would want to include a one-liner. And then after that, everything else is bullet points. But the first bullet point should be providing context of why your role exists, what you do overall. Do you subscribe to applying for junior roles just to get in, even if you're very experienced? How do you work out the resume? Yeah, if you're, I mean, I don't, that's a really kind of a vague and also loaded question. So it really just depends on so many different things. So if you're a manager level and you're not getting jobs at the manager level anymore, then maybe you would try senior analyst. But usually if you have that level of experience, unless it's because experience is from one country to another, sometimes Canadians want Canadian experience. So maybe in that case you would level down. But if you already have the right type of experience, then you might just want to relook at how your resume is being positioned and why you're not getting jobs that way or interviews that way. How to stress on your resume. Thank you guys for the thank yous. How to stress on your resume or cover letter that you can do the job with full commitment. So if you are applying for jobs that you don't have transferable skills, then it's usually better to reach out to people directly on LinkedIn or to be referred by referrals, because people are getting tons of applications. So it's really, that would be pretty difficult to apply for jobs that you don't have relevant experience for, unless it's entry level. Okay, that was a whirlwind. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Jen. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Hi, Alex.
Hi, great. Yeah, that was a great amount of questions. It was awesome. I just wanted to come on and say thanks for presenting, and yeah, just thanks for speaking today. I know you've spoken a few times in the past. It's always great to have you. I see that you put your LinkedIn as well. So is that the best way for people to get in touch with you, or do you prefer email? Or okay, great.
LinkedIn's the best.
Oh, great. And just to let everyone know, so this is our final session for today. So our main stage panel has actually just started now at 3:30 on the stage. But thanks again, Jen. It was a really great presentation, and thanks for answering all these questions.
You're very welcome. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.